probably heard the saying, yeah, when pigs fly. How about a flying bear? Got one right here. Flying bear. Company provided this laser to me to assemble and demonstrate, and that's what I'm going to do. This one has features. I'll show them to you coming up. I'm Roger, welcome to the shop, and as I mentioned at the very intro there, this is a laser from Flying Bear that they provided to me to assemble, test, and demonstrate. And that's what we're going to do here. This one has some features that are not found on a lot of entry-level diode lasers. It has a drag chain, it has limit switches, it's got a homing function, and it's got some other things that I'm going to show you here as we assemble this. And I'll be doing this in detail, step by step. So if you're very experienced with putting together lasers and 3D printers and things, you may find this boring. Or then again, maybe you're curious and you may not. Or you may be one of those people that are just a little bit mechanically challenged and need to see everything close and step by step. So first thing I'm going to do is get this thing opened up. I did open the box already because it was delivered in a rainstorm and I didn't see it right away and the box got absolutely soaked. Fortunately, it is taped all the way around. I mean, it's just covered with tape, so the contents did not get wet. Just a little bit on the end right here, but it did not affect the contents at all. So I'll get you in close here. We'll see what we got in this box. You probably see here the end of this box is a little bit darker because that got wet, but it did not hurt anything. None of the contents got wet. So this is well packed. First you get a piece of foam, you got a packing list, tells you what all is in there. You got the user manual, LaserMan. That's not like my alternate ego, Random Man. LaserMan, we'll get into this of course. Okay, so right off we've got a whole bag of goodies here. USB cable, some test pieces, a little brush, marker, some zip ties, belts, wires. Another bag here that contains all of the hardware. Set that off to the side. You get, of course, every laser you get these little kind of cheesy glasses that absolutely better than nothing. Wear these. But as you get more into this, move up to regular optical glasses that are made for this. And I did a whole video on it. The actual proper color for a blue diode laser is orange. But again, this is better than nothing. And even though, I'll get this laser head out of here, that this has a shield on it, if you're going to stare at that for any period of time, wear the glasses. And now that I have this out, I believe this is a 5 watt. This doesn't look big enough to be a 10 watt output. Okay, we have a drag chain, and this is a real plus for cable management. We'll be getting into that. We got some wire loom here that is wrapped around, some brackets. The legs, things are kind of scattered around here. You got to pay attention. You're unpacking that you actually get everything. And we'll get into this in detail. And here are two of the extrusions. No, all 4 of them are right here. They're packed together on top. Another piece of loom in here that's underneath some plastic. Don't miss that, or foam I should say. It's buried under that foam. Don't miss it. So that's the first layer. And the second layer here, we have the controller, which I will probably get last because it's buried around everything else. Looks like there's a rotary with this. This has an air filter with fume extraction, another plus. Another part of the roller there. We'll be putting this together too. Stepper motor, 4 legs. The power supply, it's a wall wart style. I don't like those, but they work. This here is your fume extractor. You see that the outlet on this is 3D printed, but that should be fine. We have some more roller parts down here that are kind of buried in the foam. You're going to have to look carefully for. This is very well packed, I will say that. Here's your X gantry. Now I'll get this controller out of here. And here's your controller. It has Wi-Fi, has an emergency stop. Oh, I guess that's a horn beeper. And there's a micro SD card slot on there. I'll make sure there's nothing else in this box. Nope, I believe I got all the parts and pieces out. The first things you want to do is take stock of all your hardware, unpack it all, make sure you've got everything. You can refer to the packing list. It does come with a little wrench and some little hex wrenches that I call alien wrenches. I'll be using a ball drive style because it's quicker and easier, and I like these better. And I have a whole set of these. This particular one is made by Eklund. There's several companies that make them. But I'll be using this style rather than the included hex wrenches that they send. And the little open end wrench there looks to be about 8 millimeter. That's probably to adjust the eccentrics, which we'll get into. And it should be perfectly adequate for that. I also like to have one of these little magnetic trays. I'll be keeping all of my hardware in there. It keeps it all in one place, so it's not rolling all over the work table. Okay, and in the next little bag we got some zip ties. We got a chain, the micro SD card, and the reader is in there. A little brush, have a marker, get some things to practice with. USB cable. And some parts for the fume extraction. Your belts. And that's probably going to be for the rotary. We'll have to see about that. I would imagine that's what that's for. Okay, the first step is put the frame together. This is fairly straightforward. You'll need the M5 by 25 screws right here. And if you look at the frame, you'll see that one end of there is bored out. That's where the head of the bolt actually goes, like so. And you look at the shorter extrusions and they're threaded in the end. This just simply threads into the end. And if you're using the ball drivers like I am, it's 4 M&Ms if you're keeping score. So it's just a matter of getting that lined up and screwing it together. And you want to do this on a flat surface so that when you do tighten it up, everything will be square. See, the first part was pretty easy. Now we'll get on with putting the X-axis gantry on. This is also fairly straightforward. You want to have your numbers here for your Y-axis on your left. You'll want to have the gantry with the legend down there facing you. The 0 on the Y-axis rail will be to your left and in the front left corner. This is just very simply passing this extrusion through these sets of wheels. And we'll see if we need to make an adjustment on the hex or not. And this should just slip right in. And it should roll smoothly on there. And we don't have to make much of an adjustment here on the eccentrics. These are set pretty good from the factory. What you want to be able to do is to pick this up and it'll roll, but not real fast. If it goes zooming down to the end, you'll need to tighten the eccentric nuts up. And in fact, I'll point out what those are right now. If you look right here, there is a nut. And if your wheel is too loose or too tight, you can turn that, and it is not perfectly round. It is what they call eccentric, and it will change the amount of grip that this has on that extrusion. And since these are set good at right where they are, I'm not going to fool with them. So the next step, since I have this upside down now, is to put the legs on. Let me get those gathered up. Okay, the next step, as I said, is the legs, and you need to start out with these little square M5 nuts. They slide into the end of the extrusion, like so. And you need to do that on all 4 corners. I'm not going to do all 4 corners quite yet because when I turn this around I may drop them. Next you're going to need these M5 by 6 screws. Machine screws there look like that. And if you're using a ball driver, it's 3 M&Ms. Keep a score there. So that'll fit that perfect. Of course, you'll need your 4 legs. You'll also need these little, what I call hammerhead nuts. They call them T-nuts. So what you'll be doing is slipping this screw in from the outside and just starting this nut. Just start it, and you'll notice, I guess I better show this too. one side has a raised collar. That is the side that will go towards the screw you're putting in. The other side has some little bevels that goes away from the leg. So you'll be putting these little hammerhead nuts, as I call them, in two locations, the two outer banks. This particular one here, you cannot put a screw in because that's where the bolt is. It holds the frame together. This one here, you'll use a screw directly into the end of the extrusion. So it's just a matter of having these horizontal and slipping them right on the extrusion, like so. And then you could take your single one here and right into the end of the extrusion. It's already threaded there. You make sure everything's square before you tighten it up. Now as you tighten these hammerhead nuts up, they swivel in that inside that channel in the extrusion and grab. There's one corner. Rotate this around. Do the next one. Do not forget to slide your nut in the end of the extrusion before you put your leg on. The two outer corners again. Here again, get your nuts horizontal. We'll slip right into that extrusion. Your single one will go into the threaded hole in the end. And then just do that on the other two corners, but don't forget that nut. Okay, the next step here is to install the synchronizing belt. And a lot of people have trouble with this, so I'm going to go into this in real good detail. One side of the belt has teeth on it, as you can see here. The other side is flat. The side with the teeth will go against this roller down here, which also has teeth on it. Get that over there where you can see. And I was kind of surprised this belt came in one long length, so after you do one side and get it fixed, you'll have to cut it off so you'll have a piece for the other side. But that's fine. This belt needs to pass under this roller. So this belt needs to pass under this roller, over this roller, under this roller, and back down again. And it could be a little fiddly sometimes. But if you start out here on the end and use some type of little tool to pop that end up once you get it past the roller. Probably got my hand right in the way so you can't see what I'm doing. Okay, one way to do it is to just pass it right through underneath both rollers. Then holding one end, kind of push back a little bit till you make a loop. See that loop pop up right there? Then you can grab a hold of that. That makes it easy to grab. Go over your sprocket right there and back under the next roller. In front. And get a hold of that. We'll take it out to the end and we'll anchor that one, and then I'll show you how to tighten the thing up. Now to tighten this down, we'll use this back corner here for an example. The belt will pass underneath that square nut you put in. Hopefully you didn't forget to put in. And I'm going to push this one clear to the back because that's not going to be my adjustment point. You'll need to take one of these here screws. You need to screw that down into the nut. Tighten that up, and that'll grab that belt and hold it back there. Give it a little tug, make sure it stays there. Now, on the front corner here, we're going to do basically the same thing. You know, in this front corner, we're going to do basically the same thing. We'll be passing it under the nut, but we want to leave a little bit of extra hanging out here so I have something to grab onto. You don't want gobs of it, you'll end up too short for the other side. So you'll want just a little bit there sticking out, so I'll leave myself about a 1/2 inch. I'll cut this belt off for the other side. Now I'll pass this under the nut, and then I want it to stick up a little bit, so I want this to stick up a little bit down here so I got something to grab onto. I'll pull this down. Now I'll start my screw in the top. And I need to pull this so that it is taut, and make sure you don't have any twists in it. In fact, I got a little twist down here where I tighten that up. I'll make a little bit of an adjustment there. Get that twist out of it. You don't want a twist in it. Now, how tight to make this? Well, that's a little bit subjective, and it's kind of hard to show. But you don't want this so tight you can't move this, but you don't want it flopping up and flopping around either. So you get that where it's fairly taut. Don't use any tools to pull on that belt. You don't need to. Just use your fingers. You can tighten that down. Make sure it rolls smooth. It doesn't bind. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side here. Okay, for our drag chain brackets, that's what we're going to be coming up here with next. We're going to start with this one here. You'll need a couple of M4 screws and hammerhead nuts set in there like that, kind of horizontal. If you're using a ball head driver, it's 2.5 M&Ms. Look at your extrusion down here where your 0 indicator is. You just slip into the extrusion up against the leg. And just tighten those nuts down, making sure to keep everything square there, just like that. So this little bracket race part will be facing the inside. The rivet nuts, which are on the bottom of this, will be down. So now on this corner, this will be the end where your 440 millimeter is. This bracket right here will go on like this into that hole. And you'll be putting the screw through from the back side. And you'll be using the upper hole here, not the lower one. There again, there's a rivet nut on here. It's already mounted in there. This side goes up. Get it squared up on there and tighten her down. Where the drag chain goes on, there's a plastic track that lays underneath it. And I've got it just kind of sitting in place there. Notice there's one hole at one end and 2 holes at the other end. You're also going to need this wire harness for the air filter fan. It's going to go under the drag chain. It's not part of the internals of the drag chain. Now will be this one here that is red, black, and yellow. One end has a black connector, one end has a white connector. The end with the white connector goes to the end with 2 holes in it. And this just lays on the track there. Sort of like that. Now in the end here with the single hole, you'll need an M4x6. Again, that's 2.5 M&Ms if you're keeping score there, using a ball driver. And you'll want to fasten that end of the track down to that bracket. Don't do the other end yet, because the drag chain has to attach there. Okay, now down here at this end where you have the double hole, you'll take your drag chain and lay it with the Don't do it the wrong direction. If you do it like this, your bracket will be wrong. You want it to be so that these open sides are up and this part is flat down. Place your little wire there over to one side a little bit so you can get this drag chain mounted. So there's 2 holes there. And you'll need these M4x8 flathead screws. They will screw down through the drag chain and into the bracket, through the plastic track and into the bracket underneath. Make sure your wire's out of the way over there. Don't get it into your cable, or don't get the cable into the screws. And you'll screw those down till they're flush. Again, make sure the white end of your connector is at this end, not the black end. You'll have things backwards. You'll be taking this apart again. And that's all there is to that part of it. I'm going to install the laser head, and this is very, very simple. You see there's a little thumb screw right here. Let's back that out. See, this is what I call a dovetail. This just slips down through that extrusion. Yeah, make sure you don't drop it. And just tighten that thumb screw down. It could be anywhere for right now. So the next part we're going to be doing is putting a plastic loom on between the wiring harness over here on the side and the laser head. Almost missed a step. There's a laser support, cable support. That's what this here is. Notice there's a single hole below 4 holes. You'll need one of these little 3mm screws, and this takes a 2M&M driver if you're using ball drivers like this. There's a hole tapped right here. That just threads into that. Almost missed that little step there. So there's our laser support bracket. Okay, next you'll need the cable that actually goes to the laser head, and that's this one with the white. It has a little yellow fork terminal on it. You need to get that kind of untangled from everything else here. That's the one that goes to the laser head, and we need to pass that through the plastic loom. Okay, now there's 2 of these plastic looms, and these are split should you decide you want to do it that way. You'll be using the smaller one, and if you start at the right end of it, because of the way the corrugations go, you can just slip this wire right through there. You may have to wiggle it around a little bit if something would get caught. And if everything goes as planned, it comes out the other end. Okay, next is the connection to the laser head itself. You'll notice on this plug it's keyed. One side right here has a couple plastic protrusions. If you look at the socket on the top of the laser head, that faces in. These will also face in. And it should plug in effortlessly. You shouldn't have to force anything. Don't bend those pins. You'll have a dickens of a time getting them straightened out. Now this little fork will need to go under this screw up here. And for that you will need a Phillips screwdriver with a number 1 tip. By number 1 I don't mean the best you got, I mean it's size number 1. You loosen that up. Pass that fork underneath it. Watch you're not interfering with your bracket. Tighten it back down. Don't go crazy, it'll break that acrylic. So when you're done, it'll look like so. Okay, next you're going to have to open the drag chain. This is actually very easy. On the side facing you, just take a small screwdriver and these just pop open. The hinge on the other side. Of course, and then etc. till you get all the way to the other end. Okay, with all your little clips open, this eventually mounts right here. You want to take the wires from your wire harness and pass them above these screws where this is attached. And you could do it after you attach it. I'm actually going to do this a little bit of ahead because it's a little bit easier to finagle these wires down. And I will pass most of this down through there so it just hangs. So when you get up to the top there, then you'll need a couple of these little 4M&M screws. And you can kind of push your wires out of the way a little bit there so you can see the bracket. So it'll look like this. Then I'll take these and hold them up inside the track and snap the first few of these shut. Then I'll slide my gantry back so all the way at the back so I can work these wires out right down the line. Lay them in the track. Back here. Snap everything shut. Voila! Okay, next we'll be putting the control box on, and I do want to show something while this is off. This right here is what's called a flame sensor. I found out on my other lasers that have these, if you are trying to use this out in the sun, this isn't going to work. I actually had to cover this up on one of my lasers. This does have an adjustment you can make and I may show that later. It's on the inside. There's a potentiometer you can turn. I don't believe you can get to without disassembling it. No, you'd have to disassemble it. But if, there again, if you are engraving something or cutting something and you happen to walk past it when there's an open window there and the sun would happen to hit that, it will trip this every time. So it's something to be aware of. Sometimes they're overly sensitive, and as I said, there is an adjustment in here. So now to mount this, you'll see there's a recess here. This will go on this front extrusion right over here, like so. So we're going to set a couple of screws and hammerhead nuts for the side, and then I'll show you how to do these top ones. It's not as hard as it sounds. A little bit of a dexterity thing, but not something we can't overcome. You'll start out with starting a couple of the hammerhead screws, or hammerhead nuts rather, in these side brackets. There again, make sure the collar is the right way, and just get them started on there. Then with the nuts in the horizontal position, just slip this in, slide it over till it meets the leg. You can tighten those up. Now to get the top ones, take a hammerhead nut again and drop it down in the extrusion with the collar up, and take a small tool or your hex key or something and just push it over, and it helps if you don't have one that's magnetized. And it works just like that. Up closer so you can see a little bit better. There again, make sure that collar is up. Let's drop that down in the extrusion. Do a little shove over till that hole lines up. Like I say, it helps if you don't have magnetized tools for that. But just take your screw. All there is to it. Okay, we've got 3 wire connections to make to the control box, and this is fairly straightforward because no two are alike. They're all 3 different. The one with the most pins here will go towards the back. You'll see there's a little clip there. That also goes towards the back, and it should plug in effortlessly, just like that. You shouldn't have to force anything. The 3-pin connector, there again, this is keyed. You'll see the little keys. Those keys will go towards the front, and this one goes on the bottom. And the last one is a 4-pin. There again, the little keys go towards the front. Should plug in effortlessly. Don't bend those pins. And just like that. Okay, next is the air purification fan chute that goes on the back of the laser head, and I've got this propped up on a box so you see this a little better. That's this guy right here. You'll need 2 of these little it's like 3mm screws. There are holes threaded on the back of the laser bracket. They just thread in like so. Don't go crazy with that. That's a 3D printed part, probably with PLA, and if you over tighten that, you'll break it. This guide up here is to pass that tube through. This is your air duct tube. That's the bigger of the looms you found when you unpacked everything. That'll just go through there. Keep your finger on the bottom there so you don't break anything. If you twist this a few times, it'll go right on. That's all there is to that. Now we got to put the air filter box onto the front. Next we'll be mounting the air filter box. That goes on the back right here on this corner next to your drag chain where your other cable is that you put in on that track. It does come with a spare element. There is already an element in there, and to change that you would just take out these 4 screws on the sides and pop this off, put your other element in, you're good to go. We'll set that off to the side. For this you'll need a couple of those 4mm screws and a couple of hammerhead nuts. Again, you would just start the screw on the hammerhead nut. Again, collar towards the screw, bevel towards the extrusion. Just kind of get those nuts horizontal in there. Slip that in. And using the correct driver, tighten those up. You have this little connection to make here. There again, this is keyed, it only goes one way. And it'll just snap together like so. To unhook that, there's a little tab there you would push down, and you just pull it apart again. Now this bellows, or I shouldn't say bellows, but this tube, which is your air filter, just pops onto the top like that. And while we're back here in this corner, cable tie, you'll see there's a couple holes there. Tie your cable up there. It's out of the way. Now some other points we need to put cable ties. You want to tie your loom up out of the way so it is vertical. It'll look like that when you're done. And then on this side, you'll have the same thing. There's a series of holes over here. It's got a little bit of extra cable there, but that's okay. This is not as tight as it looks. There is some slack there. So when you're done, it should look like that. You just need to cut the ends off. Little protective cover sheet, plastic sheet you can take off of your display. This is a touch screen. We'll get into the operation of that in the next video. We got a few more things put together here. This is the roller assembly, and it needs to be assembled, and it's fairly straightforward, not too tough. Make sure you got all your parts lined up, your screws handy, and all that good stuff. The first step is to put the bottom supports in, and this roller goes to the outside, by the way. I'm using these here, the M4s. Over the bracket itself, for the main assembly, there's these 4 pieces that go in, a couple screws each side, all 4 corners. So now you'll be needing to put the stepper motor on, and it mounts from the inside out, like so that your sprocket will be lined up with that roller there. And you'll need 2mm screws in all 4 corners of that stepper motor. And it helps to have the right driver. Get that started there good. Always start your screws before you get them before you tighten them down. Otherwise, you may end up wonky somewhere. Once you get all of them started, then go back and snug them down. So there we are that far. For positioning the rollers on here, it's going to depend on what size item you're going to be engraving. You'll have the end brackets here. You'll need to put a 3mm screw in each one of those holes. There's rivet nuts on the back. And then that will set in here where you want it to be. I'm just going to pick a random position here for now, just to get this assembled. Obviously keep your sprockets at the same end. I'll assemble the other one and figure out what I'm going to be rolling. You're going to need to set your rollers according to what just got a can here for an example. So you want to have these spaced. Yes, those come off. They're supposed to. You want to have these spaced for where you're going to be working and what diameter item you're messing with. And that'll be about right for that. Anytime you change diameters of things, you're going to have to move these rollers closer together or farther apart depending on the application. Okay, now on this end, you're going to have to put this belt on. And for that we need to go around everything, including the idler. Well, obviously the idler is too far over, so we'll just loosen that up a little bit, slide him in. Get the belts around everything where they belong. Oh, loosen up this idler pulley here so that slides around so you can move it. Teeth down onto the sprockets, round everything. Pull your idler pulley back so you get your belt good and tight. Don't make it so snuggy that nothing will rotate. Then you can just tighten your idler back down. So when you're done, it's like this, and you've got a little bit of give there, but not a whole lot. That way everything rotates the same, so that when your item is on there, it can do this. I may drink that. Last item on the roller assembly part is the cable that will actually plug into the Y-axis on the laser later on. Again, this is keyed. One end has 6 pins, the other end has 4. The 6-pin end goes towards a stepper motor. Only plugs in one way. You shouldn't have to force it. You just pop right in like that. And another little handy thing is you can use this slot right here to route your cable out of. That's all there is to the assembly of the rotary. Okay, so that's everything the assembly. You get all done, you got a piece left over. That happens to be the focus plate for focusing your laser, and it actually stores right there. That's a nice handy little spot for it. What we're going to use it for next, though, is to align the 2 synchronous motors on the x-axis. Gantry here, so when we're traveling on the Y, we're not wonky. Okay, to do this operation, I'm going to have to power this up. And I guess that was on already. So I guess we'll start out with move and bring it home. I have never used this before, so this is the first startup. And we are home. Okay, to get everything synchronized here, this is on the right hand side, this is home all the way forward. So there's 2 set screws in this pulley. We need to loosen those up. Then I'll move the gantry back. And I'm moving this just a little bit at a time. So we have the alignment there. Now I need to have that same alignment on the other side. 10 millimeters at a time, I'll be forever. Slip this in, we'll make sure we have the same alignment. Now I need to tighten those screws back down. And we'll bring it back home. Okay, for focusing, it's just a scrap piece of plywood in here. Put the focus plate underneath, you loosen the thumb screw, you lower the head down. It's just like so. Once you get it in a position, lock that back down. Take your focus plate back out, put it back in its holder, and I'm ready to engrave something, and I'm sure you're going to want to see this work. The touch screen will give you an update as to the progress as you're engraving. Okay, a little side note here as this is doing its first engrave here on this test is I do not smell any smoke at all. I've got, all the doors are closed right now in the shop here, and I smell no smoke. I don't see any smoke. That filter is actually doing a lot better job than I ever expected it to. We'll try this out on some cedar here too. We'll see how well that air filter works, because that stuff really smokes. Now if you happen to be thinking it's making jerky moves, it's not. What it's doing, it's making it what they call a rapid move between spots of engraving. So where the like empty spots are, it passes by those quickly and then slows back down for where in the spot it actually does its engraving. Yes, I told you I was going to drink this. I had it out, had to do something with it. Got a couple other little things I want to do quick. I'm going to connect this via USB, put it in the light burn, and I want to see if we actually have a 400 millimeter square travel. A lot of times laser will say it's 400 millimeter square work area, and it's really not. I've had a few that were a few millimeters short, so I've set up a 400 millimeter square tool path in light burn, and I'm going to frame. We'll see if it follows it. And it did. It came right home. I will also add that the graduations that they have on here are surprisingly accurate according to where this actually stopped during the framing. A quick test I'm going to do, it's an owl and it has a lot of intricate lines. I'm just doing a line engrave, I'm not doing a fill, so this should go fairly quickly. And I've got this set up in light burn now, and I'm working off absolute coordinates. So we'll frame this. And I need to move my wood here a little bit so we stay away from the holes. Okay, let's frame that again. Sure we're staying where we need to be. And I'm cranking up some pretty good speed here, so we'll see how this goes. Of course, in this particular mode, it does not turn on the air exhaust filter. I would have to do that manually, I suppose, from the touch screen. Okay, there's a note. Don't be fooling with the touch screen when you're in light burn. You'll stop the laser. See if I can resume that. We need to look into a way to have that air filter start when I start this from light burn. That might be maybe the air assist command. I do not have air assist turned on for this because it doesn't have air assist. Running at 3,000 millimeters per minute at 90% power right now. So there we have our owl. Looks pretty good. And I'll try a quick cut on here just for a demonstration. I know the the exhaust fan isn't going to come on, so I haven't figured out a way to make that activate from light burn. I'll have to look into that. So we'll do a little bit of a small cat here. We'll frame this first, make sure I'm on my board. I am up in the corner there. Give this a start. Oh, it cut it out perfect. So what do I think of this so far? Well, assembly was fairly straightforward. It was fairly simple. This has a lot of features on it that a lot of entry-level lasers, and I'm calling this entry-level because it's not really expensive. This has features on it that most don't have. The drag chain, cable management. Of course, the little fume extractor thing here is great. I just need to figure out how to make it work from light burn and laser gerbil. I may have to add something to G-code. I'll have to look into that further, because it's like the first time I've ever fired this up. It has limit switches, it has an auto homing feature. I absolutely love that because it lets me work from absolute coordinates when I'm doing a project. And I work almost exclusively from light burn, and I like working from absolute coordinates. I like working from center. And coming up in future videos here, I'll show you how to get this set up in light burn, how to get it set up in laser Gerbil. I'll be making a baseboard for this. I'll be making a spoil board for it. I'll show you how we're going to burn that. And I'm actually going to use a spoil board file for an Artura laser on this because it has a 400mm work area, and so does the Artura Laser Master 2 Pro. And I have one of those. So that'll all be coming up in a future video along with some other projects, and we'll do some demonstrations on a few of the different things this can do. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. Roger in the shop. Flying Bear. LaserMan. Diode Laser. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.